Okay, so the first thing is I'm going to use the text shadow. I would like to create shadow on my text, and what I will do is I will select this H1. But before then, I want us to understand the values for shadow, for the text shadow rather. So I will create a comment here and say text shadow, right? Shadow. So the values, right? We have the offset for X, offset for Y, the blur radius, and then the color. That's the shadow color that you want. So which means we use the value this way. We say text dash shadow, right? And then you have let's say 10 pixels, 20 pixels, um 3 pixels, and then red. It means that the offset for X is 10 pixels, offset for Y is 20 pixels, and then the blur radius is 3 pixels, and then the shadow color is red. So this offset here means now for this 10 pixels, right? X means the horizontal axis, that's from right to left or from left to right. I mean, if you have done graph or if you are familiar with graph, right? We have this graph sheet where you can draw the horizontal line and then the vertical line. But the way it works here is that this 10, this 10 here is a positive value, right? A positive value. So the direction we move from left to right. Yes, from left to right. If this was a negative value, right, it will move from right to left. It will move to the left. All right. Then for y, this is a positive value. It is moving downward. On the graph sheets, the down part is actually the negative part. But in design, especially CSS, if the y axis is a positive value, it is moving downward. But if it was a negative, it will move upward. All right, so we're going to see that shortly. And then this 3 pixels is for the blur radius. So how blurry you want the shadow to be, and then the color that you want for the shadow is this last value. So quickly, let's create a shadow for on this text CSS box shadow. Okay, I think this should be text shadow if you really want to follow it. Okay, so first I will like to give this color red. So using hexadecimal color code FF0000. So this should give red color, right? Red, good. So to create text shadow, so I'll say text that's shadow. Again, the first value is the offset for the horizontal axis, that's the x-axis, right? Let's go for pixels first, and then for y-axis, I will go for 20 pixels. Then for the blur radius, we'll go for 0, maybe 3 pixels, okay? And then for the color, I can use hexadecimal value if I want, so F00. So I can use these 3 values because we have identical pair, right? Identical pair in the sense that FF for red, 00 for green, and then 00 for blue. So I just pick 1111 for each of them, F00. Save, let's see the output. Refresh. So look at this. We have the text, the shadow for the text. Now, the reason why we are having it at the bottom or beneath the text is because of the offset that we specify. I mentioned that if you set the offset for y to a positive value to move downward, and that is why you have this shadow, somewhere close below the actual text. And then this line here, as you can see, is not equal as the actual text, and that's the x-axis. So we have successfully shifted the shadow, okay, a little bit to the right because of the value that we set, 10 pixels. So I'm going to reduce this to 10. If I use this to 10, obviously this should move upward a little bit, or 10 pixels to the top, right? Because this is the y offset for y. If I refresh now, you see it has moved it, it has moved it. Then if I set this to 5, it will shift it 5 pixels to the left. Yes. So to shift it to the left 5 pixels, refresh this way. So I'm doing this just for you to have an idea of what these values here are doing. Are we together, please? And then if I set this to 0, it means that I don't want it to be blur. It's going to be sharp, basically, as you can see. It's no longer looking blurry. So if I head back and give this maybe 10 pixels, it will kind of increase the blur radius for that shadow. You see, I mean, to some extent, I can't even see what's going on right here. Then if I head back to the code and set this to 0, 0, 0, it means that I don't actually want the shadow to move. So it should just be behind the text, basically. Then we have this. So that is that about our text shadow. So quickly, let's look at box shadow. I have this div element here, okay, with the content of a box. And I would like to create a box shadow, right? Now for box shadow, we have additional value that we can set. Still the same thing, but one more value that we can set for box shadow. So box shadow, again, set X, offset Y, the blur radius, then we have spread radius, and then we have the color. Okay, so for this one is for text shadow. So div, right? Because we have an element here, div. So using the type selector, we have our selector as div and then declaration block. And in the declaration block, we have box dash shadow. So we can start. Okay, before then, please, before then, I would like to increase the width and height. So for us to see what's going on, actually, that's doing this. Doesn't matter though. So we give this width of 300 pixels and height of. You can play around with this value, please. It must really be 300, 300. So maybe border 2, just for us to see the content or see what is going on basically. So border 1 pixel solid. Remember the shorthand property for border solid, maybe black. So 0, 0 black. To the browser. So great, we have this, and we want to create a shadow, right? Want to create a shadow. But anyways, I don't want to see this, I don't want to use the border, but just to let us have an idea of what the box looks like right now. This is the shape. So if I remove the border, we might not really know the start and the end of the box. But then I'm going to remove it. Great. So now the box shadow. Box shadow. Box shadow. So offset. Let's go. 10 pixels, maybe 10 pixels again. 10 pixels. And then the blur radius with 10 pixels. Then spread radius 10 pixels. Color is a black. Color black. Okay, so look at it here. I mean, this shadow is quite weird. It's not good looking. So let's see how we can tweak it a little bit and or try to figure out how each of these value works, right? So first, this is the offset for X, the horizontal, right? The horizontal. So it makes sense. 10 pixels. So it means that the shadow has moved a little bit to the right, right? Because the value is positive. If the value was negative, it will move to the left. I mean, let's see that. We can set a negative value. So if it's say minus, let's say minus 30, for instance, it will move it to the left. So you can see it has moved the shadow to the left horizontally, right? I actually want a positive value there. Positive value horizontally. Great. Similarly, if I give the or value for offset y a negative value. So for instance, or negative 30 pixels, right? It will move it upward, it will shift it to the top vertically. So save, you can see the shadow has moved upward. Then I will turn it back to 10. Okay, this is just to give us an idea of how you can adjust the shadow of your box or the text as the case may be. And then the blur, okay. At first I will change it to 0 just to prove that this is the blur. So right now the black should be sharp, very sharp right now. No blur on the element or on the shadow right now. Okay, so you can take it back to maybe 5 months, save. All right, the little. The next one is the spread. So you can actually spread the shadow if you want. So right now, if I increase the value, to let's say 50, it's going to spread the shadow more. You can see. So it will spread it along the axis based on the offset value that you set for either of these two guys, X and Y. All right. So now let's create something that looks nice. So I'm going to comment out that refresh, no more shadow at this point. Let's create something nice. Sometimes if I want to create box shadow on a card, okay, you can call it a card actually. This box can call it a card. On a card like this, what I do is box shadow. I will set the offset for X axis to 0 pixels, Y to 0 pixels. So I actually want the shadow to be exactly behind the card. All right, and then I will give the spread, the blur radius maybe 10, okay, and then the spread. Okay, for now let's just go for 3 pixels and then maybe 10. And then for the value, I don't use a black color. All right, so instead I will use the RGBA to get some transparency, transparency of the black color basically. So RGBA again 0 and then I will say maybe 0.2. Save. Then if I save and refresh, I mean this looks nice, right? So this is how you can create a nice looking card using box shadow in CSS. I mean there are a lot you can do with box shadow in CSS. Going forward in our future session, we're going to see more designs and how we can take advantage of box shadow in CSS.